Hey,
What?
have you heard about the amazing Black Friday deals at selloffvacations.com?
No, but why are you whispering?
Because these savings are like savings on top of savings. And if everyone knows, there won't be any more left.
Savings on top of savings?
See? Once people know, they book.
Okay, with these deals, I'm booking an all-inclusive vacation in the Caribbean, a flight with the girls, and maybe an island-hopping cruise.
Hurry, because with vacation deals on top of vacation deals this Black Friday, they won't stay around for long. So visit
selloffvacations.com.
Hello, welcome everyone to the Jann Arden podcast and show. I'm Jann Arden. I'm with Sarah Burke. I am in Springbank, Alberta. Sarah Burke is in Toronto, Ontario. And Julie, I'm going to put on my do not disturb before we even, this is real life, folks, here. This is Julie. I'm so sorry that did you guys hear that
You
ding?
didn't even
Right?
hear
just
it.
bleeped out my name.
Okay. And our very special guest back from a long hiatus. And Julie and I are glad to be back into the realm of podcasting together. Julie Van Rosendaal. Let me tell you a little bit about her.
Hello.
Hi, Julie. I'll let you say hello first.
Hello.
Just for some quick background on Julie, in case you are living under a truck that forget it. Okay, just for some quick background, if you weren't with us for her last appearance, which was probably over a year ago, she is a food journalist, a broadcaster, an author of 13 best-selling cookbooks. Do we have that right? 13. You probably don't even frickin' know.
But I keep going over it and it's right. Yep.
13 best-selling cookbooks. She is the columnist behind the Calgary Eye Opener on CBC. She is actually a regular contributor with CBC for the last 17 years, which is almost as long as I've been living in my house out here in Springbank. But you may also be familiar with her work in the Globe and Mail. She's a terrific writer, the Chatelaine magazine, and probably a lot of other stuff. Anyway, listen, Julie, let's just hit right to it. How have you been? What's been happening? Your son just turned 18 years old.
He's an adult. I have an adult living in my house. I mean, when I started CBC, as you were saying, 17 years, I remember like breastfeeding him and then running to the studio and then coming back. So he's like my marker for everything. How long have I been doing this? How old is Willem? Yeah, he turned 18. I successfully ushered a human to adulthood.
Yes. And we are so grateful for really great young humans to be coming into this world. I know that your son shares a joy of cooking too, because lately, like the last little while, Willem's down there. He's doing the stuff. He's making, this is what my son's making today. I'm like, wow, I was barely making like a bowl of cereal when I was his age. Like I didn't cook at all.
I don't know where he got it from. I've been cooking since I could push a chair up to the counter. So, ever since he was little, I've just encouraged him to be in the kitchen with me, even if he's not cooking, even if he's doing his homework, even if he's just sort of absorbing through osmosis what I'm doing in the kitchen. And I think that's how you nurture a love of cooking.
Nature nurture. What is it? Would he got into cooking? Had he not seen you cooking? Or, that's I mean, who knows?
Maybe.
It's the DNA, right? The DNA part of things.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if DNA had anything to do with it. I would be a gastroenterologist. So
I would be in the concrete business.
I don't know. I guess it's related, right? Gums to bums is how my dad puts it. So like your whole digestive. Yeah. So maybe, it's always been my thing. And it's nice that it's his thing. He was going to apply at SAIT for culinary arts, but he didn't get around to applying. So he's taking a gap year. I want to take a gap year. Can I take a gap year?
I would like to take also a gap year.
Let's
the three of us
do
should be
that.
taking a gap year.
How'd you guys meet? You guys got to fill me in. I know that our listeners might know you, but how did you two meet quickly?
It goes back quite a long time. I'm going to say at least 10 years because I knew of Julie, obviously, because I had heard her on CBC. I was familiar with her cookbooks. And I think I have 4 or 5 of your cookbooks.
Wow.
Julie.
What?
So I'm thinking I need to find the other 8. I digress. We were up in Jasper when I actually physically met Julie. We did such a fun I don't know what would you call it, like a weekend, a bunch of women
Like a
that were in their
retreat?
pajamas at Jasper Park. Yeah, you tell.
It was the girlfriends weekend, I think they called it. And Jann was the special guest one year. I often went as sort of the culinary something or other.
Guru.
What I did one year with Molly Ringwald, which is a whole other story.
Wow.
And one year with Jann. And I had forgotten about that. I came across photos of us cooking together. We did some sort of crazy, like, on-stage dessert show together.
So fun.
Little snippets of memories about it. But I do remember your talk. People just loved it. It was,
What was the talk about?
I don't know, just stuff, just life.
She's good at that.
You know, she's so good at it.
Well, you talk a lot just about kismet, really. I mean, it changes. People are always kind of probably very concerned when they hire me to do speaking engagements because they're like, do you have a PowerPoint? Do you have notes? Do you need a podium? No, just if you've got a wireless mic,
Good to
I'm
go.
just going to wander around.
Let her
and
loose.
Off we go.
Let her go.
Is there a clock that I can look at to make sure that I don't do 9 hours?
A cane will come out and like a gong. Do you remember the Gong Show? Do you remember the Gong Show?
The guy with the paper bag on his head, the unknown comic, used to come out and get gonged all the time. I miss that show. Chuck Barris.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, we're going
Wow.
way back in time. I have some great questions that Sarah put together. Actually, Sarah, I'm gonna let you ask. You sent me so many great questions because I was on a film set yesterday and I wanted to be prepared because although you are a very dear friend to me and we know each other, I also wanted to let people in on not just the personal side of it, but like all the cool stuff you do. And Sarah doesn't know you from a cookbook. So,
Well, expect some in the mail, Sarah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm
We'll
excited.
correct that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me start with this. There's been a lot of changes to humans in all types of ways over the last 3 years, right? But I think two very trendy but also important things are accessibility and sustainability right now. So in all the like television stuff, columns, whatever you're doing, where do you start with like sustainability and accessibility?
Of food, I'm assuming.
Yes, of food.
Food. Yeah, this is a big topic.
I'm diving
How much
right
time
in.
do we have?
we got
have
time.
5 hours? Do we have 5 hours?
I know. We've got time.
This is a big question, and it has changed over the last, it's changed over the years and the decades and the millenniums. But during the pandemic, we had a situation where people who had never been faced with food insecurity had limited access to food, right? Were financially struggling. Just accessing the grocery store was a challenge during the pandemic. We saw schools closed, right? And so that was a big trigger point for me. My sister is a principal at a school for kids with complex needs. And so her school never closed during the pandemic. But I know how many kids access food at school as their main source of food. So, for example, sorry, this is a big question. I'm trying to grasp onto it somewhere.
Julie, honestly, take your time.
Okay, so I was born.
Going way back.
And we're
going to take a quick break.
I've never had to worry about where my next meal came from, and so this is a key interest for me is a focus on food security and food access, and so during the pandemic, one of my main concerns was all these kids who were displaced from school, this disconnect, right? And then accessing those kids is tricky. The hunger organizations don't have access to these kids in the way that schools did, right? So, so for example, the Alberta government had all this millions of dollars earmarked for the breakfast and lunch programs, and they distributed it to the food bank and to the agencies and said, okay, feed the kids who are at home. And they're like, great, where are they? And they're like, well, we can't tell you. So we launched these pop-up lunch stations at 13
amazing.
Points across the city. And I think the key is doing what you can with what you have in your community, right? And everyone wants to do something to help, but the problem is so big, it's hard to know. You feel helpless. It's hard to know what to do.
The little things do make a difference, don't they? The little things. So I think when people do throw their hands up in the air and they think it's such a big problem, I can't possibly make a difference. And Julie, it was so inspiring to see restaurant kitchens being utilized to cook food. People had to switch gears very quickly because they didn't have 60 people sitting in their restaurant. But those lunch programs, we did see people that, normally tens of thousands of Calgarian kids, Edmonton kids all across the country that weren't getting their lunch and probably a snack during the day at school because they were being forced to stay home.
Yeah.
And their parents didn't have food in the cupboards to give them at home because they really relied on the school food programs to feed them. So we really saw the breakdown. COVID did a lot of good things, as though they were really hard lessons. We learned about where those fault lines were in our society. Food, yes, those huge gaps. So definitely you saw food. It was very inspiring watching you kind of navigate that, get people organized, inspire people to do a little bit. Even when you're packing 100 bags and people come by to pick them up, that's 100 people. Yeah, it's not 50,000, but it's 100. So
the gaps.
I feed one kid. That's worth it.
So part 2 of your question, Sarah, because I know there was part 2.
It is kind of like how do we educate the next generation on these things and keep it moving forward?
I think we lead by example. So many people get stuck in the, what if I plant a community garden and people steal the food? Well, it's kind of the point. What if we start, right? Like for years,
my carrots are gone. Okay. I guess that was the point.
Right? Like all these things we thought we couldn't do. Oh, you can't, drink in the park. Well, turns out you can. You can't order booze with your food. Turns out you can. But so many people get stuck on the community pantries. People tried to start community pantries for years, and there were all these concerns about
expiry dates.
Yeah, and who's responsible if someone gets just all these what if that held people up. Now during the pandemic, people just did it. Right? People just did it, and that's what I think. To a degree, just do it. Just learn as you go. Don't let not knowing how to proceed stop you. You have a kitchen, you have all this displaced food, you have community halls, you have, just do it. Reach out and be aware of what the need is in your community. And kids see that, right? Kids learn. Having them participate in whatever way they can, I think is great. And just sort of as a daily, as a part of their thought process, right? How do we consider?
You inspired me. You absolutely inspired me.
Oh, thanks.
Just to do things like food bank. I always, because of you, Julie, I do not go through Safeway or wherever I'm going without doing a couple of bags for the food bank every time I go. And some people say, okay, Jan, not everyone can do that. Well, I can do that.
Exactly.
So when we're talking about things we can do, I can afford it and I need to do better.
Exactly.
So I always do a couple of those bags every single time. And that's because I just thought, why aren't I doing that? I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it because I had my head up my butt and I didn't realize. I hear about it and I think, well, I have to start pitching in too. So that makes a difference. I love seeing those bins filled up.
And my sister, thanks you. My sister works at the Mississauga Food Bank here in Ontario. So yeah, it feels like a never-ending battle for the food banks, of course.
It is.
So, and I have always been a supporter of the food bank. I think it's very necessary, and I do a lot of events to raise money for the food banks.
There's a caveat here. I feel it coming.
During the pandemic, this is a tough thing to talk about, but I think it's important because a lot of the smaller organizations don't have access to the same funding and the same grants and they don't have full-time, fundraisers. They don't have full-time grant writers. There are a lot of smaller organizations that are struggling, and individual schools are struggling too. So over the course of the pandemic, the Canadian government sent out over $300 million in emergency funds to food banks, to Community Food Centres Canada, to Second Harvest, to Solidarity Kitchen in Quebec. There are 5 recipients, and a lot of them have surpluses as a result. And so I think when you're considering where to donate to, if you Google financial statements, not community impact reports, financial statements, you can kind of get an idea of where people are. So I worry that I hear from so many teachers who are having to fundraise for food supports for their schools, which is ridiculous, that they don't want to access the food banks because there's this perception of need. But there, in Calgary, there is enough food. There is enough food. There is enough money that people shouldn't be hesitant to access the food banks.
Would you be like referring to things like the mustard seed, the smaller down the tier organizations that depend really on their community to give them financial support money because they don't access those big centers. They don't have anything to do with those big centers.
Yeah.
But what about the people that are literally feeding hot meals on the street every day? Is that sort of what you're referring to? Those people don't have access to that.
I love that. Yeah, the sort of grassroots organizations I like to support. The schools for a while. Years ago, I started this snack bank at schools. Right now, I'm trying to work with the CBE and the food bank and some other organizations to get food pantries in schools. Right? Like the teachers, educators should not be fundraising. They should not have to worry about food access. I've had principals call me and say, like, my number one priority is getting these teenagers fed, like getting these teens fed in a dignified way. And like, I could talk about this for hours. And so we're running up with walls from the CBE. There's a new person taking
Please
over.
tell everyone what the CBE is.
Oh,
Julie.
sorry. Calgary Board of Education. Yeah. So, okay. I mean, there are different boards of education across the province and across the country. So they all.
But isn't that kind of ridiculous that school boards, even much before the pandemic, were really struggling to feed their students and realizing that they had kids coming to school that were sitting there.
So many kids.
Tired. Lunchtime came. Billy didn't have a bag to open or a lunch kit to open and was kind of just sitting there. Yeah. And it's amazing. Like I said, COVID really shone a light at so many of these things. Mm-hmm. I want to switch gears here just for a minute because there's so many things that I want to get to.
Good idea.
No, not at all. And if you're listening to this and if you're hearing what Julie's message was, which is very passionate, and you know of a local organization or someone in your community that is doing that, phone them and ask them what they need. Can't hurt.
Public
Say, I'm
schools.
Marge. Can I take you 10 jars of peanut butter? Like, I don't know. Just phone and ask. Don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. Take action. Anyway, switch gears. So in my mind's eye, I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago when your name was rolling around in my head. I'm like, oh, we got to get Julie on the show and we'll figure out a time. Now, you girls tell me what you think of this. I would love to start a supper club, but hear me out. I would like to do 8 people because I think 10's too many to have a conversation. But I would like to do complete strangers.
I love this.
Like
that is so, yeah.
I mean, obviously you worry about vetting people or things like that, but you'd want to get like-minded people that would sign up. You would do it in a public restaurant. You don't do it in homes.
Of course.
There's no personal homes.
Okay.
So you're not at risk at somebody perusing, whatever the word is, your home, going through you know what I mean? You meet at a restaurant, 8 people, you've pined the date, and you just sit there. Everybody pays for their own meal. Mm-hmm. And you have a conversation. You just like, hi, it's not dating. And I really mean that. This is not dating. It's not looking for a hookup, although that could certainly be the collateral damage of a dinner.
A side effect.
I notice how I said collateral damage, not even a perk.
Yeah.
But what do you think of that? Like, is there something out there? I even kind of went online and I was sort of looking like stranger dinner clubs, and I found some really kind of weird randomy thing, but it wasn't really what was in my mind. How would we go about doing that?
I'm so down.
I don't know.
Food is love, right? Sharing food is love.
Okay, so I have so many thoughts. thoughts. I'm just waiting to jump in.
You're the guest. Go.
And it's so funny because I was actually thinking about this morning.
Stop it.
I was literally thinking about this morning. So years ago, I was talking to a friend about doing dinner parties where you invite, say, if there was 10 people, you invite 5 people and get each of them to bring somebody who is interesting, who you don't know. And
there's
then
the vetting process.
You mix them up. So they can't sit together at dinner. It can't be a partner. It has to be someone different, and then mix them up. And I can't remember the name. We had like this great name. And then COVID hit, of course. Similarly, I was in a taxi or an Uber or something out in London, Ontario, I think, somewhere in Ontario. And the driver was a new arrival. He lived in Windsor, which is where a lot of my family is. I swear this is relevant, I promise. And so he was telling me about, he had arrived with his wife and small children about a year before from Syria. And it just really hit me how hard it must be to arrive in a new country and not have any connections. Nothing is familiar, but those connections that we take for granted, right? No family, the community, sort of have to start from scratch. My cousins live in Windsor. His industry was related to my granddad's and my uncle's industry. And his kids were the same age as my cousin's kids. And so I connected them, and was so happy to sort of be able to make that connection because we had been talking. But when I got back, I reached out to the Center for Newcomers and and said, how can we present the opportunity for people in Calgary to invite newcomers to dinner? Like, how do we how do we break out of our bubbles? There's lots of support. For newcomers, but just how do we break out and reach people who have just arrived and create those connections? And
a lot of the systems and support are so it's rigid in government and process, right? So a connection that's different.
Exactly. I want to get to know people. So, and then again, the pandemic hit. So we started having these potlucks.
Wow.
Yeah, we had one every December, not during the pandemic, but we just had one this past December again at their new facility, and which is where the old IKEA was in Calgary. And so that's just something that I've really been ruminating on as well. And it popped in my head this morning.
Well, it's so interesting because as I'm reading the news, I was trying to wake up this morning, just you kind of stay in bed that extra 20 minutes and just kind of look at social media and, okay, what happened overnight when I was sleeping? Mm-hmm. God knows. It's always amazing what can happen in 10 hours. But anyway, this one article is interesting because it was an op-ed piece about the importance of talking to strangers. And they listed quite a few examples of, the dinner party certainly is one example of sitting across from somebody and discussing things, whether it's something that you agree with or not. But just even on a bus, people taking the time to acknowledge someone. Sometimes you catch eye contact with someone and you feel like you've committed this mortal sin that, I looked them in the eye and I caught their eye, and you kind of smile. And when someone doesn't smile back, you feel somewhat betrayed and you feel kind of let down. And sometimes you feel a little bit embarrassed that you took the time to make that little spark of, hey, I'm another person walking down the street. But the article was interesting. And the guy talked about how much more people used to go to a diner, have a piece of pie by themselves before work or after work, or have a coffee. Like even in coffee shops now, I will go into a mom and pop shop, not just Starbucks, but some of the great ones. Julie took me to a really great coffee shop in Britannia, and I just loved it. And sitting there, and it seemed like the ones that I've seen, I see everyone with their computers open because they're taking advantage of the free Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. And they're not really talking to each other. Mm-hmm. Where this guy was saying even 10 years ago, so even in 2013, there was 45% more engagement. I don't know who does these studies. I have no idea. But what do you guys think of that? Just what's keeping us from... I try and talk to people sometimes.
Some of my favorite travels have been when I just go park at the bar by myself and see who I'm going to talk to that night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even I did a story for the Globe years ago when online shopping was starting to become a thing, and pre-pandemic, but the focus of the story was these small connections that we make when we go to the grocery store, right? And they're so important for our mental health and our physical health. So, just talking to people at the checkout, talking to people in the aisle. And I read recently about a grocery store somewhere in Europe where they have a slow line. They have the fast line, but they have a slow line.
I read that as well.
If
for elderly people, mm-hmm. and for elderly people to talk to the checkout
mm-hmm.
person.
I love it.
So
I love that. And you can pick up on people. That's one thing that I tried to pay attention to is, when usually an elderly person sort of sparks a conversation in the grocery store, you pick up on that and just, take a few minutes to talk to them, because it's so important.
Human connection.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Human connection. Julie, I think we should figure out, we can try it once, maybe find 4 people that we don't really know. Could start with 6 people.
Yeah.
I don't even know how,
Yeah.
or if there's people you've always wanted to meet. You and I should do an experiment. I wish Cheryl was in Calgary, but maybe we should just try once getting people that we don't really know, that we know of, and say, do you guys want to meet me and Jann at blah, blah, blah for a bite to eat for an hour?
And it's a great way.
Try it.
It's a great way to support restaurants too that have had a hard few years, Well,
we're going to talk after we finish the podcast today.
It's a great,
I know,
but when you guys are in Ontario, you guys will both be in
Yes.
Ontario at some point. I will expect my invite then.
Yeah.
Well, we could reach out on social media and say, hey, I follow you on social media. It's me. You can look me up if you want to.
Yeah.
Julie and I are looking for, 4 people to go and have dinner in Calgary. Obviously, we'd have to do it here. I don't want people to travel in. But I would love, as just a social experiment, to sit down and see what comes of
I'd love to
it.
hear about it after. Oh my
I
God.
have some people in mind. And I think that to reach out to people who wouldn't necessarily be able to afford a dinner in a restaurant.
Would be amazing too.
Okay, well,
Some newcomers.
listen, I'll foot the bill for this first dinner. It's on me.
Well,
This
we'll
first-
split it. We'll split it.
We'll
split
split
it. Yeah. Seriously.
Okay, we'll take that off the table. We'll split it.
Okay.
Now, at the other end of the pool, here's my next kind of a horrific story that I stumbled across. I believe it's in Australia. It's a. I don't know if it's a crime or a really, really bad luck story, but 4 relatives came to lunch. 3 died with symptoms of death cap mushroom poisoning.
Ooh.
So as you know out there, it's so nutty. I don't know if they're still trying to get to the bottom of it. If this woman that had her relatives over knew what she was doing, her and her daughter had different meals. They didn't eat the death cap. They're called death cap mushrooms, which is your first clue of not to eat them.
Unfortunately, they don't have labels with their name on them. This is the problem with mushrooms, right?
But homicide is involved. Well, listen, if everyone is wondering about why you get high from mushrooms, it's because of the amount of poison you're putting into your body. So think about that for a second. But you can say the same thing about alcohol. Mm-hmm. Alcohol, that feeling of, ooh, I feel so great. Well, it's a poison that your body can manage to certain degrees. But yeah, the mushroom can. So homicide people are involved. A 70-year-old died. Her sister, 66, died. And one of their husbands, a 70-year-old man, died. And then there's a reverend that's still clinging to life who's 68. But the woman that hosted the lunch, I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm just kind of appalled.
Yeah.
Her and her daughter are alive. So
yeah, that's her and her daughter are alive.
you know they're going to make a movie out of this.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Well, she's denied any wrongdoing. So
I haven't seen the story.
Could she have gone to pick mushrooms? For God's sakes, don't anyone go. I have mushrooms growing all over my yard right now. Like I have giant ones. I have ones growing out the side of trees. Mm-hmm. And I love mushrooms.
Me too.
I make mushrooms for myself. I have mushrooms on toast probably once a week.
Yeah.
Really?
Me too.
Mushrooms
Me
on
too.
toast.
Oh, the best.
With shallot and like vegan butter on a piece of sour bread toast.
Okay.
Like piled up. Fresh garlic. You can do all kinds of things. You can do fresh herbs and oregano, make them a kind of Italian-y. You can put a splash of balsamic in there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
best.
I will try and follow along with this story to let you guys know.
Keep us posted.
But if you wanted to get rid of people, there's no end to the diabolical stuff that you can come up with. Let's hope she made a mistake, but I have a feeling she did it on purpose. Why would you and your kid eat a separate meal?
Yeah,
I want to know that is not a dinner club that we are going to be
this
having.
This is a
ladies and
Netflix
gentlemen.
special.
Yeah.
If there is anyone in this world that we can dive into food trends with, it is the guest that we have on our show today, Julie Van Rosendaal. Don't go away. We're going to talk about some food trends if Julie can remember.
Hey,
What?
have you heard about the amazing Black Friday deals at selloutvacations.com?
No, but why are you whispering?
Because these savings are like savings on top of savings. And if everyone knows, there won't be any more left.
Savings on top of savings?
See? Once people know, they book.
Okay, with these deals, I'm booking an all-inclusive vacation in the Caribbean, a flight with the girls, and maybe an island-hopping cruise.
Hurry, because with vacation deals on top of vacation deals this Black Friday, they won't stay around for long. So visit
selloutvacations.com.
Hi, it's Jann Arden. I'm here with Sarah Burke and my friend Julie Van Rosendaal. What's going on in food these days? Like what's the big thing? Like I feel like ramen hit here and never let us down. Like ramen. Everyone was doing ramen. What are kind of some other things that people are doing or restaurants are cashing in on, or because it was avocado toast for 100 years.
Oh, so long.
Avocado toast.
Well, the new thing is grocery prices, but let's not go down that road. I have theories. But yeah, what's going on in food? Most of the food trends, honestly, are driven by like TikTok and Instagram,
Isn't that insanity?
It is insanity. So like the cottage cheese ice cream and
Okay, what's that?
It's ice cream made with cottage cheese. So it's
You
high protein.
blend it.
And you blend it. And so it's supposed to be higher. Well, I mean, it is higher in protein than traditional
So
ice
cottage
cream,
cheese in a blender, you chuck your fruit in, you put it in a plastic
I tried to
container.
make it, but I forgot to blend it, and it was not good.
Oh,
Sarah,
no. Blending is key with cottage cheese ice cream.
Rookie mistake.
Rookie mistake. I'm trying to think of the other. I just did a whole show on TikTok food trends, and I've just like jettisoned them all from my mind. There's like the sweet potato toast where you slice it and you put it in the toaster.
what?
I mean, there are all these different. The idea of food hacks, that the word really annoys me, right? These hacks, and there are all these tips, these kitchen tricks.
That's true. A
that
food hack.
It's a hack.
Usually, if you're a hack, you're someone who's not doing a great job at anything. A hack.
Exactly. You're a hack, right? Or you're cheating, right? It's not cheating. It's just a method that might be faster than other methods. I don't know. But what was my point? I had a point. All these.
Well, just that the trends have gone out the window in TikTok. I know. For a while, a lot of people were putting a bunch of tomatoes in a frying pan with a block
The
of
feta.
either feta cheese
yes.
or vegan feta, like whatever your thing. And then you would cook that, melt everything down, and then throw in your cooked pasta. And this was the big thing.
Yeah.
So there was a few of those,
TikTok
which
pasta.
doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world to me.
No.
And I did try it with the Veal Life vegan feta, and it was so delicious.
Oh,
and I
good.
also tried it with boursin cheese, has a plant-based boursin. I tried it with boursin, a couple of fresh garlic cloves, and a bunch of tomatoes.
It's so good.
And that was delicious as well. But yeah, food trends. I'm always I guess it is driven by social media.
It is driven by. I mean, there are different kinds of trends, and this is something I often address in the Globe, right? So there are these sort of longer term, slower growing food trends, like and I don't like calling them trends because it sounds like unicorn frappuccinos or like the charcoal activated everything. Just these little blips that sort of pop up on social media that are short term, and then these longer term trends like the trend toward more plant-based eating, people being more aware of the environmental footprint that our food choices make. We see there are more non-dairy milks on the market than ever, right? And growing and growing. So there are those trends. And then there are these little, the feta, the TikTok feta and the TikTok salad and that's how people get their information these days, right? Rather than going to food magazines or and food magazines are the kitchens, the Chatelaine and the Canadian Living test kitchens don't exist anymore. which is so sad.
Wow.
And
I love a test kitchen.
me too. That was my dream when I was a kid. I was going to be Elizabeth Baird. I was going to be the food editor of Canadian Living, and I was going to run the test kitchen. This is me in grade 4. And so my point was, that's where people are getting information. It's in our feeds, right? So we see these little 20-second ideas. They're not recipes per se, but these ideas, and people see them. Food is very visual, and think, oh, I could do that. And that's how we share ideas nowadays.
What's one of those trends or hacks or any of those online social feed things that you hate, that you want to debunk?
Oh my gosh.
Even in the process of a way you do something like melting the feta in the pan is not the way to do it because this, and this happens to the,
Well, and this is something that I tell kids when I teach kids to cook, is there is not one right way and a whole bunch of wrong ways to do something. There are a lot of ways to do something, right?
Talk a little bit about you started teaching kids online, and I know that was part of the pandemic thing too. You don't charge. You don't charge for this. So this is not something that parents have to sign up and spend $9.99. And we were having a conversation once, and I in my mind's eye, I'm thinking, yeah, it's a Zoom cooking class, cool. And I pictured kind of 16 little faces on the screen that you could see everyone. Julie's like, no, there's like 1,000 kids. I'm like, excuse me? So did that surprise you at all at the response of kids wanting to learn to make snickerdoodles or s'mores or simple bread or pizza dough? I'm making this stuff up, but the things that you taught them that were fun to cook, you had like hundreds of kids on doing these courses.
Well, the first week, it was 2021, I suppose, January, when they announced that schools would be closed for another week in January. And it was like minus 100 in Alberta. And I felt for those parents. My son was 14 when the pandemic started. He excels at social distancing, and he's fine, right? But the parents of the young kids, I just so I just put out on social media, if anyone wants to join me, we'll do a cooking class every morning at 10 for that week. We ended up doing all week. And the first class, I upped my Zoom account to 1,000, and it people couldn't get in. So that surprised me. Yeah, I know,
it's crazy. I was picturing 10 kids with glasses with a few zits,
same
cooking bran muffins. And she's like, "Oh no, I had to change my Zoom account because there wasn't enough bandwidth.
You had to become pro."
It was amazing. It was so great. And I love seeing the teenagers. I love seeing the teenagers in there. A lot of them have their cameras off. So we still do it because they're so into it. I did make it free.
Their cameras off.
Because I don't want accessibility to be an issue, right? I don't want people to have to ask to get it for free if they can't afford it. No, it's just free. It's just free. Yeah, and I love doing it. I love it. So we went every day that week. The Saturday, we did a full day croissant class. And it's funny because people often ask me, are you going to do a kids cookbook? And I say all cookbooks are kids cookbooks.
What does that mean?
There's this idea that,
well, it's probably a fucking chicken nugget,
pizza
and fries.
Cookies,
I mean, Jesus Christ, kids are so much more like, dear restaurant owners out there in the world, please reimagine your children's menu. Mm-hmm. They're not assholes. Mm-hmm. They know food. Mm-hmm. They have a very good, they are on TikTok. They know what's going on. Stop making them chicken nuggets that are killing billions of chickens, for God's sakes. Rethink it.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, do some braised cabbage.
The things that they ask to do, like
kids love braised
sushi.
Cabbage. That was a bad example.
My kid does not love
really
braised cabbage.
It.
I love braised cabbage, but anyway.
It's
not You're on an island there.
It's not like,
I do too.
They don't want Brussels sprouts, but come on.
But some of them do.
Please,
they all have different
step
tastes,
up your game.
Right? They all have different tastes. They all grew up in different cultures. They all have different tastes.
My friend's 2-year-old loves like avocado sushi rolls. She loves seaweed. Loves seaweed.
Yeah.
Like,
so funny.
Yeah. Just let them explore. Let them like what they like. And it's this, we tend to sort of plant these ideas in their minds.
Oh, it's the same everywhere. Go to any restaurant, Julie. Go to any restaurant.
Yeah.
It's mac and cheese, a grilled cheese, chicken nuggets. Oh God.
I know. There's some Sobo in Tofino has an amazing menu. Lisa, the owner, I think her kids developed the menu, and
Oh, that's so cool.
it's wonderful. Yeah, but yeah, it's all food is kid food, right? And they are capable of so much more than what we tend to consider. Parents are like, my kid made this pain au chocolat. Like, yeah.
Well, if you've got an air fryer in your kitchen, you'd be surprised what your kid would like in the air fryer too. Just saying.
My kid loves the air fryer.
I would eat a shoe out of an air fryer.
Okay, can we just clarify? Because I cannot not jump up on my soapbox right now and say an air fryer is a tiny convection oven. Frying, by definition, is cooking in hot oil. Air frying is baking. But it's still a great thing. I have an air fryer. My son uses it. It's a tiny convection oven. You can make 2 biscuits in it. You don't have to preheat your oven.
Well, I pictured little nodules of oil spraying around in there, and now you've wrecked it.
It's the marketing that really gets to me, right? That idea that we're getting away with something, right? And frying has been a cooking method for millennia, right? Like around the world, frying in oil. So I did a test.
What a great idea.
I promise I'll stop in 30 seconds.
No, keep going.
I actually did a test because I got on this soapbox on CBC as well and talked about it. And I made fries in the air fryer, tossing the potatoes with oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, whatever. Peanut oil. And I did another batch on my stovetop using the cold fry method, which I love. So cold fry method is you put your potatoes in your pot, you cover it with oil, you bring it up to a boil. And it sounds like the potatoes are going to absorb a ton of oil. They don't. They kind of cook slowly and then they finish off and they're nice and crisp. They're just like, restaurant twice cooked fries. I cooled the oil and measured it. I used slightly less oil on the stovetop than in the air fryer.
Interesting.
So this notion that it's healthier than it plays on our perception, the stigma around deep fried food, right?
Well, it's the whole thing comes down to weight loss, weight management, how not to get fat. The whole thing's connected to that. Period. Full stop. An air fryer is geared towards people who think that if they eat this, they're going to get fat, and that's all it is. Mm-hmm. That's what's drilled into us from the time we open our eyes. That's what, and men are getting it now too. They're getting it in droves. So it's everywhere.
It's just found your debunk.
Whole other show.
You just found your debunk.
That is a debunk.
Look at you.
Yeah, you're right.
There you go. We just learned something. I love that.
I bet you didn't expect to learn things here today about deep, your air fryer. You know what I use my air fryer for, oddly enough? I love to reheat stuff in there. I love reheating food in there.
Yes.
Because then it's not soggy.
I feel like it's crispy. A little more crispier than the microwave. Yep. And I do grilled cheeses in the air fryer a lot.
Oh, so good.
Nice.
Like I just spray a little thing on the pan and
I'm hungry now.
I do that in the air fryer.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of like vegan fun foods. I love doing the mini little vegan quiches and phyllo pastries that come from President's Choice or whatever. They're so fun to throw in there. It's really a tiny one. It really is made for a single lonely person like myself. So I'm not lonesome.
I'm with you.
It's fun to do. And you're right. I've heard the whole convection thing. I have a convection oven. Mm-hmm. So my giant Viking has a convection oven setting. Mm-hmm. So can you explain to me in all your infinite wisdom, Julie, what the hell is that? Like, it seems so big. Like, would that work the same way if I threw some potatoes in there to convection of them?
Yeah.
Convex them?
Yeah. It's just, it utilizes a fan to circulate the air. So it's more effective at distributing the heat. It kind of dries the surface of your food. So it gets a more crispy exterior. Food can't get really crispy in the presence of moisture, and you can't get that sort of dark color. The Maillard reaction occurs at temperatures higher than boiling water. So if you have something that's wet, or if you have your veggies that are all sort of close together on your pan and they're steaming, they're not going to really brown.
They're like boiling almost.
Yeah. So the air helps kind of dry the surface of whatever it is you're cooking.
Okay.
So it would have the same effect, but it's so much bigger, right? I mean, the great thing about the air fryer, I always shudder a little bit when I use that. The great thing about the tiny convection oven, it's like an easy bake oven for adults, right? The big button,
That's why we like it.
That's why we like it so
Didn't
much.
the Easy Bake Oven cook with a light bulb?
A light bulb and the little tiny pan with a little tiny cake mix. I was not allowed to have one. My mom said, if you want to bake, you can use the regular oven.
This makes so much sense.
Right? But I borrowed my friend's Easy. I think we traded or something.
But it was so fun. My
fun.
friend had an Easy Bake Oven. Oh God, my friend in school. The strawberry pie, little cakes, and you'd eat them in your friend's bedroom.
Yeah.
Like you'd mix it in a little bowl with water and you'd pour it in. It was so fun. Those were the days.
I hid my friends under my bed and it got moldy. And then my mom was like, what's that smell? Oh, it's the Easy Bake Oven I have hidden under my bed. But you can do in the air fryer little tarts, little cakes, little like one cookie, right? One biscuit, which is great if you have one or two people at home.
Before we say goodbye to you, I want you to walk me through one more thing.
Goodbye?
When we were talking about, we do like a
I know. I get
50-minute podcast.
I
It's
get
terrible,
it.
but
the cane is going to come out and pull me off stage. I get it.
No.
That's okay.
The mug cake, the microwave mug cake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've seen a million versions of these. For people who are on the move, I guess, and don't want a whole cake and have their coffee mug. And I've seen them like 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons or whatever of your favorite plant milk. Obviously, normal people out there that aren't vegan would use an egg. I use a flax egg. I tried one like a month ago, and it was not terrible.
It's a desperation cake. Yeah,
But
I get it.
but like a little bit of baking soda. It's so bizarre, and some cocoa and some sugar. It was kind of.
They're not bad.
I thought my mug was going to blow up.
Yeah.
Because I thought, oh my God, the mug's going to blow up in there.
How long do you have to cook it for?
I did it 3 minutes is the little recipe that I had.
Yeah, it's a short time. My grandma in the 80s, when microwaves were new, took a baking class, came home and did a full bundt cake in the microwave, and it looked wet. So she kept putting it in for like 5 more minutes. Finally seemed cooked. She frosted it, left it on the table, and my granddad came home, could not even penetrate it. It was so hard. They gave it to the dog. The dog licked off all the icing and played with it for a week. But the mug cake, we finally figured out how to bake in the microwave, and that's about it. The mug cake. It's I think, desperation, late night cravings make everything taste better. I haven't made one for ages, but a little bit of baking soda. It's the egg that trips people up, right? Like a whole egg, volume wise, is too much for a mug serving of cakes, but you don't need it. You don't need it in regular cakes.
Protein.
A little flax works just fine, folks.
Totally.
But anyways, if you
And
do
baking
want to
soda.
try that, it is kind of fun. And I did go there, and I did a banana version of it, which consisted of a mashed up banana, some flour. There's a bunch out there that don't require. You can just use banana, cocoa, baking soda.
Plant milk.
Yeah, there's no flour. And I don't know, banana is so magical. You can make freaking fudge out of banana, for God's sakes. Like banana is the new gay. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what that means.
Bananas are bananas.
You can make and dates. You can make the greatest caramel with dates in a food processor.
You can
Put it,
do so
glom
much.
it on. Oh my God.
And
anyway.
I just saw on TikTok or Instagram or somewhere, someone mashed up Oreo cookies in milk, plant milk. I would use oat milk. The oat milk is best for baking. Soaked them, mashed them up, and then baked it, and it made it like a cake texture.
Saw that.
Yeah, I haven't tried it.
2 ingredients, mashed up Oreo cookies, which are vegan by mistake, or just by some beautiful turn of events in the world.
That worked out well for you.
Yeah.
She crushed them up and added oat milk and zapped it in the microwave, and it came out as a cake. And a lot of people are doing that too. I don't know how good that is for you folks. We're not talking health food right now.
Yeah.
But I have to give a plug to my favorite, these guys, Cove
Soda.
We are not sponsored by Cove Soda although we would certainly accept your money and your business. This is so good.
Cove soda. It's Canadian.
It's naturally sweetened. There's, I think, 3 flavors. And these guys are hitting it out of the park. This is the best soda I've ever had in my life.
Sorry, Michael Bublé.
Cove.
Awkward.
Cove. No, this blows it out of the water. Some people don't like a sweet drink, but this is barely sweet.
It's soda.
It's so limey.
It's different from Bublé, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we let Julie go, we have to ask her about her new column in the Globe and Mail this fall. Tell us everything, or what you can tell us.
Yeah. It's called How We Eat, and it's a weekly look at how we eat, how Canadians are eating, how we're dealing with food prices, how the first one, I don't know if I am allowed to say this. The first one's about so it's the International Year of the Millets, and millets are great for drought situations, which is something that we really need to consider.
It's not a haircut.
Not a mullet. It's not the year of the mullets. It's the year of the millets. Millets, plural. I didn't know millet was plural, that there are multiple millets, but there are. So yeah, sometimes I'll talk about sort of shorter lived food trends. I want to talk about mushrooms as a meat substitute and how people are boiling them and, doing all different kinds of things with them. And so, yeah.
They can be super meaty. Mushrooms are so killer.
Good.
There's some guys doing things that are making like mushroom steaks, the way they're boiling it, marinating it, braising it, grilling it, like taking a brick and sticking it on their cast iron. Oh my God. They cut it open and it's just like red inside. It's so crazy, but there's so many of those going on right now too.
Yeah.
Well, there's a never ending thing to talk about. Food is always going to be endlessly comforting, interesting. It's always going to be trendy, some form or another. We're very, very lucky in Canada to have the kind of access that we do to food. And there's not a moment in my life where I don't step into any establishment selling food, groceries, the like, and look around me at the abundance. And people, get pissed off. If, oh my God, they didn't have any lemongrass. Okay.
Try something new.
Just take it easy. So when you actually have an attitude like that and you get used to that way of thinking, where you can literally turn your nose up, oh God, their oranges were terrible. Like they had, people think it through.
Give your head a shake.
100 years ago had an orange in their hand in this country,
look pretty.
That thing traveled 1,000,000 miles and was a lot of love and labor to get it there. So just think about the people who are picking the food, putting it in boxes, driving it, flying it, moving it, washing it, processing it. Those people are giving up a lot of life and wellness so that you can have a fucking orange.
And a huge display of them, We don't want one or
10
two.
kinds.
And 10 kinds, yeah.
Well, thanks for coming today, Julie, and hanging out. We'll touch base with you soon. I'm going to talk to you today about this dinner get-together to see if we can get, you and I will know each other, but it'll be really great to get 4 people that don't know each other and that don't know us. And let's give it a whirl, and we'll report back to Sarah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Sarah, maybe you can try a similar gathering in your hood.
Yeah, we'll still call it Jann Supper Club. You just won't be at that one.
Okay, right.
They'll be like, wait, Jan's not here?
Wait a second. Just get like a mask, a Jann mask, and wear it.
Ahead, yeah.
Oh, I've got a bunch of Jann masks here in the house. I'll send them out to you. Well, look after yourselves, you guys. Enjoy the rest of summer. It's going by fast. Hopefully September will still be lovely. Hopefully, there'll still be a few golf games going on in October. We can squeeze those in. But yeah, the race is on. I'm not going to say how many days it is to Christmas, although I could ask Alexa, but I'm not going to. Look after yourselves, and we'll talk soon, Julie. Don't go anywhere today. Like that I can't find you on your cellular device to get our dinner club going.
Impossible. This goes everywhere with me.
Me too. Well, as usual, we're running out of time. This goes by so fast week after week. And one more thing, if it wasn't enough already, before we leave you today. Next week, after a year of raising a small human, Caitlin Green is going to rejoin our show. And we're so excited just to hear all about what she's been doing. And it's going to be really nice to have her back in the fold. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Makes it easier to find us week after week. You can stream us on all your favorite places where you like to stream music. HERE.Radio. Thank you so much for being with us. We love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Toodly-doo.